Hey there, welcome to the Entrepreneur Masters series, otherwise known as EMS. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks for choosing to take some time on this Wednesday afternoon to beef up your game as an entrepreneur. Let me tell you a little bit about what these Entrepreneur Master Series are for. If you're brand new to this, what I do is I host these on a pretty regular basis. I'm going to be shifting these to monthly basis. I used to do them every 2 weeks, but I'm going to monthly so that we can spend more time on the production quality of these and make sure that we've got everything 100% dialed in to deliver you 100% great value and content. So what these are designed to do is be a 90-minute live tactical webinar with a guest expert that I host to show you as an entrepreneur different ways that you can succeed. Maybe we're going to talk about taxes. Maybe we're going to talk about personal branding. Maybe we talk about finances. Maybe we talk about sales. Whatever it is, anything and everything that's related to the entrepreneurial journey are things that we talk about right here on EMS. So today I will introduce our guest and the topic here in just a moment. But I want you to know that I'm very grateful that you're here. These EMSs are live streamed on Zoom. If you're watching on Zoom, thank you for logging in on Zoom. They're also live streamed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So I'm glad that you're here for all, wherever you are, no matter what channel you're watching this on. Thank you for tuning in today. The replay will be available on all those channels, but I also put a permanent video of this on my YouTube channel. You can go to youtube.com/the real Jason Duncan. There's a playlist called Entrepreneur Master Series, and you can go back and watch all of these that I've done. I've done a couple of years worth of these, and there's really gold content from some of the most amazing guest experts in the world who are experts in things related to what you're dealing with on a regular basis. And then from time to time, we release these as special episodes on my podcast, The Root of All Success, which you can read more about at therootofallsuccess.com. We always make these interactive. So this is live. We're actually here. I'm coming from my home studio in Gallatin, Tennessee. Our guest is coming from his home studio, also in Gallatin, Tennessee. We actually do live in the same town, not too far from each other. But no matter where you are, you can ask questions live. You can ask questions live on Zoom in the Q&A bubble. So just go to the Q&A bubble at the bottom of your Zoom window and click that Q&A bubble and ask your question. My apprentice, Justin Tatum, is on the back end. He's watching for those questions, and he can bring those live into the meeting that we're having today on this webinar. If you're on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook, it's just in the chat windows below the video right now, right here below where we're talking. You can put in a question, a thought, a perspective, anything you want to do. And again, my apprentice Justin is watching for those, and he can bring those in. And my guest and I will be able to address those live in the show. So if you're here live watching it right now, just give a thumbs up in the chat window. Give a thumbs up in the chat window, no matter Zoom, wherever you are, just give a thumbs up. Let us know that you're live, you're watching this, and that you're here. Let me tell you a little bit about today's topic. Today's topic is the mindset revolution, how to double your business with one bold shift. One bold shift. So today I've got with me the mindset doctor, Dr. Justin Mosley, who's one of my great friends. We met through my podcast, really, a couple years ago, and then found out, oh, we live in the same city. We don't even live that far away from each other. But he is Dr. Justin Mosley is known as the mindset doctor, and today he and I are going to be talking about how we can together with you discover simple tools to improve your self-image, to improve your mindset, give you some mind shift techniques, and to get a fresh perspective on how mindset impacts every aspect of your life and business. No matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, your mindset has led you to where you are then. Wherever you are today is 100% related to that. And that's what we're going to talk about, is how to make a shift to double your income. Dr. Justin Mosley is a TEDx speaker. He's founder of the company Mindshift International, and he brings his expertise as a successful entrepreneur, but also a successful chiropractor and a mindset mentor to guide you. He's the host of the Mindset Doctor podcast. You ought to tune in on that, listen to him talk about that. And as I said, you're going to be able to participate live to do Q&A here with us over the next 90 minutes or so. So this is going to be a great opportunity to revolutionize your mindset and to create the life that you truly envision. So thank you for being here. And please help me welcome Dr. Justin Mosley to the show. Hey, Justin.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. I love doing this.
I'm
And
glad.
obviously, me and you both love talking about this topic. So it's going to be fun.
Well, it's going to be fantastic. And I want to tell the audience a little bit more about your background. As I said, you're the founder of Mindshift International. It's a company committed to helping people maximize their potential. You survived a near death accident in 2018. And because of that, you shifted from changing lives in a clinic as a chiropractor to changing lives around the world, becoming a highly sought after international speaker, a transformational coach. And you've been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox. As I said, you're the host of the Mindset Doctor podcast, and you're a former radio show host on Nashville's largest talk radio station. And your mission is to encourage, inspire, and empower others to step into their power and become the highest version of themselves so that they can unlock their potential and fulfill their deepest desires and create the next level success and abundance in their lives. And you do that through coaching, through mastermind groups, through keynote speaking, live events, etc. And today, your live event is right here on the EMS Entrepreneur Master Series. So, man, I'm stoked to go into mindset today with you to talk about what shift we can make to double our income. So, I'm glad you're here, man. It's always good to
Yeah.
see you, buddy.
Yeah, always good. And it's always weird hearing somebody read your bio. And yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in there, but if you went back to who I was back in the day, let's go from high school into college, I never would have dreamed that I'm doing some of the things I am today. So we can talk about some of the shifts I had to make to become who I am today in order to do what I'm doing today.
Well, why don't you tell the big shift that was made in your life to kind of set the stage? And I mentioned it in the bio, which is the near death accident that happened in 2018 for you. Tell everybody that story, and then that'll set up how we can individually start talking about our self image and our mindset shifts that we need to make.
Yeah, so 2018, I went on a men's retreat, and at that point, life was good. We had a successful business, marriage was great. We were traveling, living life to the fullest. I was living my purpose. I was helping people, making a difference. And then we on this whitewater rafting trip, we get to some class 5 rapids, and I'm sitting in the back of our raft, and the raft tips over, and I get caught underneath the rapid itself. And the rapid starts pushing me underwater. And I still remember the sound of my helmet scraping down the rocks as I'm getting pushed underwater. And the last thing I remember is I'm not coming back up. And everything went black, and then everything went bright white. And it was the most peaceful, serene feeling that I've ever felt in my life. And then all of a sudden, I hear this voice that said, "Wake up." And thankfully I did, because I came back to consciousness and I was trapped underwater, wedged between two rocks. And what happened, one of my buckles of my life jacket got trapped underneath one of the rocks. So I tried to push and I didn't budge. And I kept pushing and pushing and I wasn't moving. And then finally my adrenaline kicked in and I was able to push hard enough that I broke the buckle on my life jacket and was able to float to the top, got washed down the river. And at that point, man, I was rocked. And for all of us at every point in our life, we question, like, why are we here? Like, what's our purpose? But in that moment, I asked a different question. Instead of asking, why am I here? I was asking, why am I still here? Because things could have been different in that moment. What if I didn't hear wake up? What if I wasn't strong enough to break free? So that really started to question what's going on. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts that people can start to make in mindset. If you want better answers, you got to ask better questions. So for me, I started asking those questions. Why am I still here? And it made me realize that I had gotten comfortable in life, that things were good, and I was just kind of going through the motions. And I realized in that moment, if I truly wanted to step into the calling that God had in my life, I need to exchange my comfort for my calling. And that's when I really stepped back and I was like, hey, if I could do something that brings me joy and helps a lot of people, what would I do? And for me, I was like, I just want to put out content on mindset, personal development, leadership. All those things changed my life. And I was like, hopefully they'll help other people. But at that point, I was like, I don't even know if anybody's going to listen. I'm just going to start putting stuff out there. And you know how that is. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to do the things like, hey, we hope people show up. And I started a Facebook group the first of 2020, and it grew to 1,000 members in the first month. So I was like, all right, people are listening. They're loving this. And from there, it just kind of snowballed. It led into me hosting retreats and mastermind groups and coaching and opportunities to speak all over the world. And it's been a really cool experience, but there was a lot of shifts that had to happen along the way.
Well, our promise for today's episode is this mindset revolution, which is that we can make this one bold shift and double our business. So, why don't we
Mhm.
just cut right to the chase? What is the one bold shift? And I know there's nuance around that, but like, if we could narrow it down to that one thing, and then we can expand upon that as we have a
Yeah.
conversation, because I know you and I talk about this stuff all the time. So, what
Yeah.
is the one bold shift that we need to have everybody make?
Yeah. And I'm excited to talk with you about it too, because you have a whole podcast around the 5 P's to success. Because there are things you have to do to be successful. So I'm curious to get your take on this because I really think the biggest shift people need to make is in your own self-image because you can never outperform your self-image. And here's one way to look at it. You can't make $1 million on a $500,000 mindset, or you can't make $100,000 on a $50,000 mindset. Well, the mindset is directly tied to the self image, who you believe you are. And who you believe you are will dictate how you think, how you act, and how you feel, and ultimately the results that you get. So, if you want to make a bold shift that will actually allow you to double your business, it's not let me set a bigger goal and try to do the things to make it happen. Because if you don't shift your self image, you can have some good months, but you'll always shrink back to that level of self image of who you believe you are.
Yeah, this is a very interesting concept, and I know again, you and I we talk about this all the time. Even though you're the mindset doctor and your mindset coach, and I'm more of a business coach, I know that everything goes back to mindset. And you and I have been recently talking about the book. I'm finishing it right now, Psycho Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And I want to tell a little bit of this story because we you and I talked about this over coffee this morning. Is that the book was written by a guy, Maxwell Maltz, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And then the book was published in the 1960s, but he wrote it because here's what his experience was. And this goes to this one bold shift. So, listeners, listen, pay attention to this. Even if you've never read the book and don't plan on listening to this one thing. As a plastic surgeon, his job was to fix the way people looked. So if they had their ears were too big, or their nose was too big or too small, or if they had a scar from an injury or a crash or the war, he would fix it. Because what happened is 100% of his patients would show up with a bad self image based on the way they looked at themselves in the mirror. They would see a scar, they would see too big of ears, they would see something they didn't like, and it caused them to play small, to not show up the full version of themselves. And so he would fix them, so to speak, physically. And what he discovered was half of those people would go out and turn their lives completely around. Like they looked better and they felt better and they acted better and everything turned around. But the other half, who also were fixed physically and looked completely normal and fine, never changed. And so he got to thinking about it. Well, why does one person go out and double their revenue, double their everything, and the other person continue to live in smallness? And what he discovered was it was not the physical image, it was the self image. And this is what we're talking about today, folks. This is the one shift that if you make can double your income, it can double your revenue, it can double your opportunities. And Dr. Justin Mosley, the mindset doctor, works with people every single day to help them with this. And I also help on the side on my clients because I'm working on these guys that are having 10, 15, $20 million, $40 million businesses that still think, am I really successful? I really don't know if I'm playing. It's a self-image thing. It's not an external thing. So Justin, you've read the book. What are some other insights around this idea of self-image that we could help the listeners understand?
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out too, through this whole conversation, is the principle I live by. It's listen for insights, not information. So we are going to talk about a lot of stuff, and there's going to be a lot of information that we give, but there's going to be certain things that speak to you. So I want you to listen to those. You're going to get those nudges, those intuitive things that, like, okay, I really like that concept. That is telling you to go deeper with that. So be listening for those insights as we're talking. So, because even as you were talking, it brought up the concept of plastic surgery. So, one thing that does, like you look at breast implants these days, a lot of women, they get that and they feel more confident because in their mind, they actually change their self image to become a more confident person. The opposite end is a lot of people, that's like the gateway to other things. And it doesn't have to be breast implants. You see women all the time. They want to get the wrinkles Botox and then they want to Botox something else and and all of a sudden their lips look like they're twice the size of normal. They're hanging off, they're drooping everywhere, and all of a sudden they look like the Joker sometimes but it's because their self-image was tied to those wrinkles coming in. Like I look bad and I feel bad versus owning who you are, like your power, like God created you in perfection, and learning to have confidence in that, you don't need all the other things. Nothing against anybody that's had that done, but I did want to point that out that, and even there's a lot of women that I know that got breast implants and still lacked confidence, still struggled. And it's a tough thing in our society now. There was a couple years ago I talked to a lady who had breast implants, and they actually made her sick. And there's a whole health topic we could talk about that of breast implant toxicity. And so she went in, she was going to get her implants removed, talked to the doctor, did the whole consult, set up the surgery, canceled it. And she said, I couldn't go through with it because I was afraid my husband was going to leave me if I had it done.
Mm.
And that broke my heart that that was even a conversation that had to happen. But our society is based on looks and all these things which are tied directly to our own self-image. And here's the real key. The thing that we're creating in our mind, that people are looking at us and we don't look a certain way, nobody's thinking those thoughts. We are. They're not looking at
That's
you and
true.
saying, "Oh, you have a wrinkle or your lips aren't big enough," or this is funny. I'm glad we went this way because me and Courtney actually had this conversation the other night. Women, a lot of times they have their lips done because they're like, I don't like the way my lips look, and like people are going to talk about them, so I need to get them done. Well, they get them done, and they actually look horrible, and more people were actually looking at them and talking about how bad they looked versus they wouldn't have even noticed them before if you had not had anything done. So I bring that back up because it does come back to self image and really creating who you are in your own mind to you can deliver the confidence that you need to make the bold steps in business. It can actually align, you have to align your self-image with your goals in business. And
Yeah.
so I was hoping to get my iPad, be able to share, but I technology, I can't figure it out. So just imagine as we set a goal. So we start here, we want to get from point A to point B. There's a stair step process. There's steps that we have to take along the way to get from point A to point B. So our goal shouldn't just be how do I get from point A to point B? Here's the question you have to ask yourself. Who do I need to become to get from point A to point B? Because each step that you go up on this journey to success, you become a new person. So who do you need to become? And that's the best way to reverse engineer your goals. Set the goal, but then ask yourself, who do you need to become? Because the same person that's going to hit that goal isn't who you are today. It's going to it's going to require a new version of you to become the person you need to become in order to achieve what you want to achieve. So set the goal, but keep in mind you have to reverse engineer it, say, who do I need to become in order to hit this goal? And then create that image in your mind and start becoming that person. Start acting as if before you even hit that goal.
Yeah, I want to mention a couple of things too, because I think all those perspectives are really spot on. And remember, listeners, if you and viewers, if you're on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Zoom, you can ask live questions. All you got to do is go and put it in the chat. What's your question? We've got somebody standing by to pull those questions in. So if you got a question, make sure you ask it. Maybe you got a question about self-image or self-esteem. A lot of people get those two things mixed up, but and they are related. So maybe you got questions about that. But here's another example of this, Doc, is that um, people who have bulimia or people who have anorexia, for example. I heard a story of a lady. She was interviewing, and I don't know who told me this story, but she was interviewing somebody who was in the hospital. She was anorexic. She weighed 82 pounds. She was a full grown woman, but she only weighed 82 pounds. And the person was interviewing her, and she said, don't like look in the mirror. Don't you see what you look like? And she goes, well, you I'm not fat now, but if I stopped doing what I'm doing, I will become fat. So her self image was not in line with what reality showed. And I think too, and I don't know, Justin, if you've had this experience, but I know that I have. Have you ever noticed? I know we're both happily married men, so I certainly don't mean I'm not trying to talk about things that will mess up our relationships with our wives, but we're men and we notice attractive women, right? I mean, that's how it works, and
Yeah.
I'm sure women notice attractive men, but they're not as visually the visuals aren't as much for the women. Thank goodness for me, anyway, but as it is for the men for the women, right? But here's the thing: have you ever seen a woman who was not really pretty in the truest, but she was attractive. Because I think there's difference. I think there's some people that are pretty but not attractive, people attractive not pretty. And I believe it's because of the way they carry themselves. Like you can see an average looking woman, but she carries herself a certain way, and you're like, oh, that's attractive. She's attractive. And to me, that goes back directly to self-image, that that person's carrying themselves not just physically but mentally. They have an aura about themselves. They're putting off a vibe that is, I am something. And if that
Mm.
happens in physical attraction between male and female, isn't that also going to be true in the business world as entrepreneurs? I can show up as a $500,000 guy and only do $500,000, or I can show up as $1 billion guy and I can do $1 billion. And it's all about how we show up, not the reality of what we look like. What do you think?
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like it's an attractive thing when somebody shows up with confidence. So for a woman, it's not about the looks, like a scale of 1 to 10. Oh, she's a 10. No, it's how confident she is in herself. You show up in your confidence, guys are going to be attracted to that. And you're perfectly right. The same thing happens in business. The way you show up, people feel that. Everything is energy. So that's a great takeaway for this. Everything is energy. And people sense your own energy. It's just like animals. Like dogs can sense fear, other animals can sense each other. We do that as humans, but we don't consciously do it. We don't sit there and analyze like what vibrations are they putting off, what energy they putting off, but we can feel it and we can sense it. So we can sense if somebody comes in and they're confident, and we can tell how they speak, how their posture, how they use their voice and their inflection. All those things are part of confidence, but it has to do with the self-image you create. And I learned this from Tony Robbins years ago. One of the best things I learned. And a lot of people that they don't study Tony's work thinks he's just a rah-rah motivational guy, but he's really all about shifting your self-image because he had to do it himself. Like he was 40 pounds overweight and broke and living in a one-bedroom apartment, and he had to recreate who he was. And he said, I saw it on a webinar a few years back with Russell Brunson, and he was like, this guy you see, Tony Robbins, I created this guy. And that's the very important thing. I created this guy. This is not who I was. I created him in my mind and then I became him. And that's exactly what I did over the years. See, one of the stories for me is in college, I took a speech class and almost failed the class because I had a panic attack during the speech. And because of that, it created a story in my head. You are not a public speaker. That is not for you. You should never speak again. And I almost didn't even take the class, but it was one I had to take. And I was like, tried to avoid it at all costs. So that just solidified in my mind, you are not a speaker. But I had this desire, like, I want to impact people, I want to change lives. And speaking is one of the most powerful ways to do that. So what did I have to do? I had to overcome that self image I had that you can't do this, because one of the biggest ways that those things get anchored into our minds is the emotion that's behind them. If there's an emotional event, like for me, I was speaking in front of a room. You guys, maybe even in high school, you had to read in front of the class and you get embarrassed. You get emotional about that, and that anchors into your brain that, nope, that's danger. You should not do that. So it created that story for me. So what did I have to do? What most people do is they just believe that story from the rest of their life. You know what? I'm just not a speaker. I'm going to find a job where I never have to speak and I'm going to do things I never have to do that. But no, you can shift the narrative. You can change the story and change your self image. And that's what I had to do for myself. So, very practically for you guys, if you want to shift the story, I created the story in my mind. What is the highest version of me as a speaker? Like, what would that look like? And then I took people that I looked up to. How does Tony Robbins use his posture? And how does he stand? How does Jack Canfield tell stories when he speaks? And I started to embody those of other people. So I created the image in my mind. And then a topic that we can get into is mental rehearsal as well as auto
Mm,
suggestion. Those are things that I did
yeah.
over and over and over to reinforce my self image. So, yeah, we'll dive into those actually practical things to shift your self image. But I had to reprogram who I am, and I became someone different. And I went from somebody who couldn't speak in front of a small group to now I can speak in front of thousands of people. Got to speak at TEDx with Jason. Like we did, I would have never been able to do that before had I not shifted my self image.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned a little bit about the auto suggestion. You mentioned about this mental rehearsal, these types of things, and I'm interested to see from the people that are watching and listening right now, wherever you are. If you put in the chat, do you practice auto suggestion or mental rehearsals? And I'm going to tell a story that I told you this morning, Justin, for everybody else's sake. So I have a new motorcycle, a new adventure bike that I just bought a few weeks ago, and I'm still learning this thing. I'm not, riding an adventure bike off road is a whole lot different than riding street bikes. I've ridden street bikes, Harleys, and touring bikes for a long, long time. So my buddy Jeff and I go out riding on Sunday, and we're out riding through the woods, and we go at the top of this really big ravine, and we can't see down into it in the woods because there's too many trees. But my friend Jeff had already been there. He said, "Hey, this is pretty steep. Let's get off our bikes and let's walk and let's scout it out." So we go walk down, and it's, I don't know, it's probably 100 yards down into this ravine, and there's a dry creek bed, and then it goes up the other side, the same kind of incline up the other side. But the other side also had a dry, not a creek bed, but you know how sometimes it'll look like a creek when it's raining, but it goes through a pathway down a. It's where the water just rushes out. So that's in the middle of this pathway up the hill. So we're walking around looking at this, and I'm thinking, yeah, I could do this. I could probably do this. And so Jeff and I talk about it. It's like, yeah, let's do it. So we get down the first side of the ravine into the middle. And then I'm thinking, I don't know, this is a lot steeper than it looked when I was walking. Now I'm sitting on my bike looking up the hill at this thing, and I'm thinking, can I do this? And I'm on factory tires, which are not made for this type of thing. And my friend Jeff is like, I don't know, man, your tires, I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it. I'm not sure that's going to be able to make it. So I closed my eyes. I literally was sitting there on my motorcycle, and I closed my eyes, and I mentally rehearsed riding up this hill without falling over. And adventure bike riders, we fall over a lot. It's just part of the deal. You're going slow and you're doing terrain, and you'll fall over. So I'm riding up this hill in my brain, and I'm riding up perfect. Like I'm sitting on the bike, and I get to the top, and I'm standing up on the pegs, and I don't fall over, and I'm seeing it all happen. It only took about 30 seconds to do this mental rehearsal. And then Jeff gets out his phone. He's like, "All right, man, I'm on video. You ready?" I'm like, "I'm ready." So I start the bike and I take off, rode all the way to the top. First time I've ever done this, and I'm on street tires, or not street tires, but on factory tires, and I did it, no problem. And I got to the top, and I was so proud. It's like, I can't believe I did that. Now Jeff's ridden an adventure bike a lot longer than me, and I'm not telling this story to throw him under the bus, but it's just an illustration of self-image in this mental rehearsal. So he's getting ready to do it, and he has the tires for it, and he's done it before. He's not done this hill before, but he's been in these situations before. And I said, Jeff, the only way I was able to do this is visualize. And I told him, I said, I mentally rehearsed this. You need to do it too. He didn't do it. So he rides about maybe 30 feet up the hill and hits a spot and just completely the bike falls over, and I have to walk back down the hill, and we have to pick the bike up. I mean, it was on a hill so bad that we had to tie a rope to the bike and I mean, it was bad. I'm not bad in the sense that anybody got hurt or anything got hurt. It was a lot. And I said, dude, you didn't mentally rehearse like I told you to. And he didn't get it. He wasn't there. So for me to be able to do what I did, I think 100% goes back to that mental rehearsal. I saw myself being able to do this, and that self image, the image that I saw of myself riding that motorcycle successfully up that hill without falling over, made me be able to do it. And that's part of the mental rehearsal. We talk about auto suggestion later, but that's my mental rehearsal
Mhm.
personal story that happened just 3 days ago.
Yeah. So, and let's go into those because there's your self image is directly wired into your subconscious mind. So you can't just consciously try to think differently. I can't just think, hey, I'm terrified to speak. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to speak great. Like my self image isn't aligned to that. That's just a conscious thought. I have to tap into the subconscious. So how do you do that? There's two ways to really program the subconscious mind. One is an emotional experience. So for me, I had an emotional experience where I freaked out during a speech. So that was a negative emotional experience that created a negative hardwiring in my subconscious saying, you can't do this. Other emotional experiences, like you guys have been in car wrecks or different things that just kind of rock you, those are intense moments. A big one is 9/11. A lot of people remember exactly where I was when I heard 9/11, that this is going down. It was an emotional experience. So you got the emotional experience, but then also the repetition. So repetition Doing something over and over and over can actually reprogram your subconscious mind. So, and I love a couple different stories on that. One is the basketball players. So there's a study. They took three different groups of basketball players, and they had them. They wanted to test their free throw shooting ability. So they had one group. I want you to shoot free throws every single day for 30 days. The second group, I don't want you to touch a basketball. Third group, I don't want you to touch a basketball, but I want you to mentally rehearse shooting a basketball every single day. Vividly imagine it in your mind. Feel what it feels like to be holding the ball. You can feel where the laces are. You can feel the leather. You can hear the sound as you dribble the ball, all in your mind, rehearsing it. You can feel what it feels like to make the shot, seeing the ball go through the air, hearing it actually go through the net, vividly rehearsing, using all the senses. Because remember, you want to tie it to the emotions. So the more you use your senses, the more you're actually tying the emotional piece into it. So they did this over and over. I want you to do it every single day for 30 days. At the end of the study, the first group that shot free throws every single day got 24% better. The group that didn't shoot any free throws didn't get any better. But the third group that didn't shoot any free throws, didn't touch a basketball, but mentally rehearsed it every single day, got 23% better at shooting free throws. Only 1% different than the people that actually physically shot every single day. That's the power of the mind. And another one that I really like is they took people that couldn't play the piano and they wanted to teach them one-handed piano exercises. So they had one group, I want you to actually play these exercises every single day. The other group, I just want you to mentally rehearse doing it. Don't touch a piano, just go through the exercises. And they actually did functional MRIs on their brains, and they showed the same exact nerves were firing in both brains, the people physically playing and the people mentally rehearsing it. Exact same pathways were firing in their brain. And at the end of the study, both groups got the exact same proficiency in playing the piano, the group that actually played every day and the group that mentally rehearsed it. So think of the power of that. If it can do that with shooting a basketball or playing a piano, what other skill could you actually get better at? Improving your speaking. So that's a self-image is tied to that. Whatever skill you want to create, yes, you can physically do it and get the repetition, or you can mentally rehearse it over and over and get even more repetition to hardwire that into your subconscious mind.
Those stories are fantastic. I love those stories. The basketball one is that was a real study. It's been replicated many times, all with the same version of the answers. That the people that physically practice got better, of course, but the people who mentally practice got almost as good as the people who physically practice. And
Yeah.
this concept works without us even knowing. Like this self-image stuff that we're talking about, this self-image is the one bold shift. If you don't believe this stuff happens, that's a whole nother conversation. But it does happen, and it's happening on a level that you can't even perceive. That your self-image and all these pictures and these images that are going around in your head are happening without you programming them automatically. They'll do it on their own. You'll play stuff in your head based on past experiences, but if you know this is the shift you want to make, you can actively, like Dr. Justin Mosley's talking about, actively mentally rehearse these things and you will get better because you're mentally rehearsing anyway. That worry is the mental rehearsal of failure. I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Worry is the mental rehearsal of failure. If you're worried about it, you're asking and worrying and mentally rehearsing the thing you don't want to happen. That's what worry
Yeah.
is. It's praying for trouble. And you're doing that whether you think you're doing it or not. So, how cool would it be if we as entrepreneurs began to stop worrying and thinking the negative thoughts and we flipped that script and we sat down and before we got on a phone call with a prospect and we mentally heard that conversation end with, yes, I'm ready to sign up. Here's my credit card or send me the contract. Like, what if we did that? How much better would we be? This one bold shift, this is the shift. This shift will double your revenue. It'll double your income. It'll double your impact. It'll double your influence. This shift is real. And your life right now is exactly where it is because of what you've thought about and what you've mentally rehearsed, whether negative or positive. So why not tap into it and begin using it for your benefit and for the benefit of those around you? Let's talk about auto suggestion because Think and Grow Rich Napoleon Hill talks a lot about autosuggestion. As a matter of fact, it's one of his 13 principles about autosuggestion. So, could you explain to our viewers today a little bit about what autosuggestion is and a little bit about how it works?
Yeah. So in auto suggestion, a lot of times it's also termed affirmations. So saying auto suggestions and affirmations, which they are different because affirmations is an affirming statement. So like usually affirmations are straight up I am statements. So I like to use affirmations and power statements. So now I'll give you some of mine directly that I used in the past. But the key, and that's why I like the term auto suggestion, because it tells you what you're doing. You're auto suggesting to yourself over and over who you want to become. And here's the biggest thing people get wrong with affirmations or auto suggestions. And there's a friend of mine that I think he's watching us live. He asked me a few years back. He was like, "Man, tell me about affirmations because they don't work for me. Like they've never worked. I don't like them." So we talked through it. What most people do, and it was what he had done in the past, most people just try to just regurgitate other people's affirmations. And let's say if it's, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm successful, you're just saying positive things, but you're not actually feeling it. It's not directly tied to what you want to become. So the best thing to do, it goes back to that self image. Who do you want to become? And create specific affirmations and auto suggestions that you are becoming that person, and then you get excited about it. You get excited about becoming that person. So for me, I still remember back in 2010 that I was getting ready to graduate and going to practice to be a chiropractor, and I wanted to start speaking and telling the story and help people with their health, but I was terrified. And so still terrified to that day of speaking at all, trying to overcome that fear. So what did I do? I created a new self-image, and I still remember walking up and down this hill. So one thing to do is get your body, change the way you move, and start saying powerful statements to yourself. So I told myself, you're a strong, powerful, confident speaker. When you speak, people listen. When you lead, people follow. And I would say that to myself over and over and over. And you know what? At first, it sounded stupid. It sounded silly, like I don't believe this, but I kept doing it and I kept feeling it. And over time, I actually started to believe it. And I started to believe, you know what? I am a confident speaker. So before I actually stepped on stage anywhere and started to speak, I started to believe in my own mind that I am a speaker. And it's funny, I fast forwarded, I did that for like a year before I did a talk where I was actually presenting a plan where actually selling people. And I did this talk and everybody signed up. Not because I was this amazing speaker and I said the right words, but I had this self image that I was this confident speaker. And when I speak, people listen. And when I lead, people follow. And when I told them what to do, they took action on it. I created that person though. That's not who I was. I had to become that. And how I did that was use those auto suggestions over and over. But that's why those were directed to me. I wanted to become a great speaker. That's what I did. If you want to lose weight, you want to create ones that are around that. I think, Jason, we've talked about this one before for people because sometimes they're like, oh, if I'm 200 pounds and I say, oh, I'm happily 180 pounds, your mind, you don't believe that. So it's not real to you. And in psychology, they call that associative or cognitive dissonance. So there's a unbelief there when I'm saying something that's not true. So one way around that is to say I'm happily on my way to becoming my goal weight of 180 pounds, because then you're not lying to yourself. You are actually every single day you're taking the right steps. And what's cool about it, as you start doing this, you start affirming these things, you start making better choices because you realize I'm not making the choices that 200-pound person that would just go pound a pizza and drink some beer. No, I'm happily on my way to my goal weight of 180 pounds. You know what? That person works out. That person takes their health seriously. And each day you start making better decisions. And over time, you become that person. And that's how you hit that goal because you shifted the self
Yeah.
image.
So I want to talk about self-image and kind of a more comical thing, and maybe see what you think about this. Is and there's probably someone watching this right now that this applies to, and so don't know who's watching, but maybe, probably. So if you got a short person, a man who's under 5.5 feet, that would be considered a short man. I think the average height for an adult male in the United States, maybe the Western world, is 5'10". That's exactly what I am. I think you're six. How tall are you?
Six
Six
one.
one. Yeah, so you're 6'1", no taller than me. But you take a short guy, and what do we usually see in short men? We see something that we call little man syndrome or short man
Syndrome.
syndrome. Now,
Yep.
why do we call them that? Well, because what happens is they have this in them, like I'm shorter than everybody else. So I've got to compensate or overcompensate for the fact that my stature is a certain way. So I'm going to show up as a big dude.
Mm,
Dogs do the same thing, right?
yep.
Little dog syndrome. You got Chihuahuas are some of the meanest dogs in the world. They're tiny. You could kick them to the moon and back, but they act as if they're the big dog. And then the big dogs usually like they let them be the alpha.
Mm,
Why? It's because of self-image. So what I want to get across to everybody today who's watching this self-image thing is not something you have to conjure up and try to make happen. This is reality. It is happening right now, whether or not you admit that it's happening. If you're a less than attractive woman by today's standards, but you show up as an attractive woman, people are going to see you as attractive. Same thing for men. Like look at the men who are famous and they're not very good looking, and our wives would go, "Oh, he's so awesome." Like, why?
mhm.
Like, if he was a cab driver, you'd never want to talk to that guy. Like, you like he's not attractive physically. It's about their self-image. This is
Mm,
happening. So my son, my daughter have a self-image that I helped formulate through their formative years coming up. We are sons and daughters of our parents, and that helped formulate our self-image, but that self-image can be changed. We can reprogram that self-image through this thing of auto suggestion. I have on my phone, I use this app. I know, Justin, it's called Prayer Mate. I don't know if anybody can see this, but in my Prayer Mate app, you can add what you want to pray about every day. And so I actually have my affirmations are here in the prayer app. And so every day, my 5 or 6 prayer affirmations that I wrote auto suggestions. Plus, I have the ones that these auto suggestion formulas that Napoleon Hill talks about in his book. I know the first one is I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action toward its attainment. So I read that and recite that every single day. And I've been doing that for 9, 10 months every single day. And guess what? It's reprogramming the way I see myself, the way I show up in the world. So if you are an entrepreneur, which you are because you're listening to this as a listener and watcher, viewer, you have the ability to double your impact, double your revenue, double whatever it is you're trying to accomplish simply by reprogramming the way you see yourself. This is the bold shift that you can make right now. So Doc, what are some practical things that we can, besides doing auto suggestion and affirmations, which we just talked about, what are some practical ways that we can encourage the listeners and the viewers to start doing things that will allow them to reprogram their self-image?
Yeah, I think it starts just with the awareness that you can shift your self image because a lot of people are like, but this is just who I am. And our self image and our subconscious mind, the old saying is programmed by our parents, teachers, and preachers. Like what we were brought up with has programmed us, but it's up to you whether you stay that person or not. That might be who you are up to this point, but you can decide who you become in the future. So that awareness piece that I can change everything for you. So that's step one. Get the awareness around it. And and I think that along with I think one realizing they just accept this is who I am, but then the biggest thing that keeps them from getting what they want is the story they keep telling them themselves of why they can't have it. You make up all these stories and excuses of why I can't have it. I'm too short. I'm too tall. I'm too ugly, fat, thin. All the stories that we tell ourselves that aren't true at all, but that becomes our self image. So, practically, write out who you want to become. Write out your ideal life. Like, what goals do you have? And who do you want to become? Actually, get deeper with the why. Like, why do you want that goal in the first place? Is it just a vanity goal, or what is the reason for that goal? And the deep goals are tied specifically to our why. So we get deep down into our why. That's where our true self image is, anyways. Like, who did God call us to be? And I heard a great quote recently that talked about like God's gift for us is the potential He's given us, but our gift to God is what we do with that potential. And that's developing our self image. You develop your self image, you can maximize your potential and actually live an abundant life that God created you to live, not just settling for the self image that you have right now. So, Practically write it out. Create a vision. Without vision, people perish. You got to have a vision of where you're going. But again, like I said earlier, not just how do I get to that goal, but who do I need to become? And you start writing that out and say, okay, how does that person show up? Maybe the way they use their body, they walk confidently, they talk confidently, the way they speak, the way the way they move, the way they shake hands. What is it about them that sticks out to you? Because the things you notice in other people are usually things that are lacking in yourself. You're like, oh, I like that about him. Why don't I have that? Well, the reason is because you haven't shifted your own self image to have that. Because you can be just as confident, you can talk just as well, you can shake hands and be a presence just like anyone else, but you have to practice it. You have to do the repetition. And that's where practically that's the hard part. Because the hard part is people will listen to this and they'll think, okay, this is great information, but I ain't got time for that. They're like, ah,
Ain't
meta,
nobody got time for that.
yeah, ain't nobody got time for that. To actually, I got to sit there and I got to rehearse these things. I got to say these statements to myself. Like, if we could do it one time and it changed everything, we would all do it. The problem is it takes repetition. Like I said earlier, repetition is key. So doing it every single day over and over and over. Because a lot of people, there's this term going around about like fake it until you make it. That's not the way you do it. But the way you do it is believe it until you become it. So back to my story, I had to believe that I was going to be this amazing speaker and say these things to myself over and over and over, visualize it, feel it, mentally rehearse it. And then I became that person. And because I became that person, the opportunities presented themselves. So the biggest thing practically you can do is auto suggestion, specifically around your self image of who you want to become, and then mentally rehearse the situation. And I thought of this when you were talking about mental rehearsal, is this happened to me with TEDx. A lot of people asked me after I spoke on the TEDx stage, because it's an honor for us to say we're TEDx speakers, to be able to stand on that
Yep.
little red circle and join the club of people like Mel Robbins and Brene Brown and Simon Sinek. His Start With Why was a TEDx talk. And people asked me afterwards, did you get nervous up there? And I thought about it, and is I didn't. And the reason I didn't, one, because my self image was tied in, hey, I got this. But this is what I mentally rehearsed it so many times that by the time I got up there, I felt like I'd already done it. I wasn't just showing up there and was a new thing and I'm nervous. What am I going to say? I'd already experienced it so many times. By the time I was physically on the stage, it didn't feel any different than when I was in my hotel room practicing the night before or weeks before when I was practicing. So that's the power of mental rehearsal. You can do it so many times that the things become real for you. But if you want to get practical, you got to do it. That's the hardest part. Make the time. And it's about self-care. And I think that's a whole other topic we could do is we do for others so much. We got to make time for ourselves. And
Yeah.
what I look at is if people will do this in sports, in basketball, and the highest level athletes do mental rehearsal over and over and over. I just met Michael Chandler, who's fighting Conor McGregor, and he talked about what got him to that elite level athlete was mental rehearsal. And he was like, I know it sounds stupid and hokey and all these things, but that's what I rehearsed in my mind so many times that I'm such a great fighter, then I became a great fighter. So if they can do it just to go out and fight in an octagon or to throw a ball around, how much more important is it in your own life for you to take this seriously and actually apply it?
Yeah, this is so good, and I go back to I'm going to be like a broken record. You're already doing these things. This is already happening. Auto suggestion is happening whether you've intended it or not. Mental rehearsal is happening whether you wanted to do it or thought about doing it. It's all happening. It's happening every single day. You just have to insert your own will into it and change. Like I'm not going to worry about something I don't want to happen. We were getting in the car one day, we were going somewhere. One of one of my wife's tires on her SUV had like a bulge in it. And we went to the tire place and they're like, well, we can't fix it today. We'll have to fix it next week. We'll have to get you new tires. And so as we're going to get in the car, she says, well, I hope the tire doesn't blow out on the way home. And I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you even conjure that into existence? We don't want to mentally rehearse failure. We don't want to mentally rehearse, but it's something that we're doing automatically. We just have to tap into it. Now, we do have a question that's come in. It's a great question. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask the question so that Justin knows what it is, and then I've got some words from our sponsors, and I'm going to give while he's thinking about how to answer this question. And so I want you to stick through this. Here's the question, Justin. If your self-image is so entrenched negatively, how do you convince yourself that it can change? If your self image is entrenched so negatively, how do you convince yourself it could change? We're going to answer that in just a minute. But before we do, I want to let everybody know that this Entrepreneur Master Series webinar is sponsored by my friends over at Story, Storyy. Now, Story is the company that I use and thousands of other people around the world use to create amazing, engaging social media short form videos. So Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikTok videos. I even found out today Pinterest has short form videos. I didn't know that. Um, that's crazy to me. I'm never on Pinterest. I don't know anything about it. Facebook Reels, all those are short form, around 60-second videos. And you see the influencers are using these today to get their message across. Story is the company that does that. They do all of the editing, they do the on screen graphics, they do the on screen subtitles, they do everything for you. They even have part of their program on their app, on their phone, on your phone, is they can give you prompts that will tell you these are the things that you should talk about. Start with this prompt, answer this. All you have to do is press record, upload it into the app. They do the rest. They'll even post it for you. They'll do the hashtags, they'll write the descriptions, they'll write the captions. They do everything. And if you want to get one free video plus 50% off, or I think it's 50% off, it's a big discount they give to my listeners on the Entrepreneur Master Series. Just go to therealjasonduncan.com/story. That's story with two Y's. Therealjasonduncan.com/story. And you can get a free first video done for free, and you get a discount on the services. You want to get your message out there. Short form videos is the way you should be doing it today. So go check out therealjasonduncan.com/story. My big shout out and thanks to Connor and Devin, the guys over at Story, for being our sponsor of the Entrepreneur Master Series. Okay, now back to the show. And we got a great question from one of our listeners. I want to remind all the other viewers and listeners, whether you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, go and ask a question, put it in the chat, and let's find out what you can do to change your self image, because that's the shift. So, Justin, here's the question. So, our producer, Garen, by the way, let me mention him, by the way. Garen is the owner of Desk Rig, and they produce this show. They do phenomenal stuff. So, all of the screen stuff that you're seeing flipping back and forth is done live, off site somewhere else. I think he lives in Johnson City, Tennessee, way up in the way up in East Tennessee. I'm here in Middle Tennessee. He does a fantastic job of this. So if you're interested in getting your show produced, go check out deskrig.com. Thank you, Garen, for everything you do. All right. So, Justin, the question is, if your self image is so entrenched negatively, how do you convince yourself it can change?
This is a great question. I'm glad you asked it because I'm sure there's a lot of people with this question. So listen up. You are not alone. A lot of times we think we're the only ones that think like this. We're the only ones that has doubts, worries, fears, but they happen to all of us at any level. So even for me, going back to who I was, man, I struggled. I had low self-esteem. I lacked confidence. I was anxious all the time and worried. Like that's who I was. So I had to recreate my self-image of who I am becoming. So one, you got to tie it to something bigger than yourself too. You got to say why. What is the important? Why do I need to change? For me, I wanted to impact people. And that's one of the biggest ways you can shift yourself is go out and start helping other people. Because the more you help other people and you realize, man, this is my purpose. I get to help people. That will help shift your self-image too. But realize you're not alone, because even at all levels, even the levels that we're at, the voices always show up. Whether okay, I've got to raise my prices. All the voices come in. Oh, they're not going to pay for that. You're not worth charging that. Why would you do that? No, the voices in your head are always going to be there. So I tell people you have to speak louder than the voices in your head. That's where auto suggestion comes in. It's telling yourself, because if you're not programming it, like Jason said, you're doing it anyways. Like you're doing auto suggestion. If you're worrying about it, fearing about it, you're actually reinforcing it through auto suggestion. But you have to speak louder than the voices in your head. So that's the discipline of actually creating your own auto suggestions specifically for you, tied into the self image of who you want to become, and work on that every single day. So that's one step. Secondly, do things like this. Get on the Entrepreneur Master Series, listen to podcasts, books, feed your mind with people that are talking about this stuff. Because the more that you start to hear this, the more you'll start to believe that it is possible to change. Because that's the hardest thing is actually believing, because I've done it for so long, I'm probably just going to stay this way. No, it just takes one shift. And that's why this is one bold shift. If you do actually change your self image, the rest of your life can be totally different. So, back to there was something I wrote down. I don't want to hit with that. I got some notes here. Oh, one of the affirmations, auto suggestions you need to tell yourself is the past does not equal the future. And remind yourself of that over and over. Just because you failed at something before, just because for me, I failed at giving a speech, whatever it is for you, even if you were negative for 30 years, the past does not equal the future. Today is a new day. You can change it, but you got to put in the work. The longer you've been in that negative place, the more momentum you've got to get, the more auto suggestion you got to do, the more mental rehearsal you've got to do to show yourself what's possible. But give yourself time. And we've all heard of the study that like takes 21 days to change a habit. And that's actually a real study that was done by Harvard and backed by Stanford, but it was actually taken out of context because, yes, the study did say it takes 21 days to actually change a habit if you do meditation and relaxation techniques. So that's another thing to keep in mind. You have to do it repetition over and over and over until it becomes a habit, but start meditating, slowing your breathing, because that actually changes your brain waves, which is a whole other conversation that I love to have too. But slowing your breathing, getting out of this fight or flight worry response, tapping into your autonomic response, and then rehearsing, saying the power statements, the auto suggestions, and the mental rehearsal until you start to feel differently. That's the biggest thing. I would do it over and over until you feel differently. You know what? So let's use speaking. I went from terrified speaking. Then in that moment, I felt like, you know what? I could actually be a speaker today. And then I would show back up tomorrow and I would say it again. You know what? I feel like a little bit more like a speaker. And over the time, I just finally, the belief hit where this is who I am. So it is going to take work. And that's the hardest part is people don't stay consistent long enough. So back to that study of the 21 days, they said if people didn't actually do relaxation techniques, trying to learn a new skill, it actually could take up to a year to 18 months to actually create a new habit or learn a new skill. So do it over and over and over, but relax the mind. Get out of the worry, the stress, the anxiety. Tap into you, the inner self, and your inner world creates your outer world. So that's where it's got to start. And it starts in the mind, creating this self image. So thank you for that question. Love for your feedback,
Yeah.
Jason, on that.
Yeah, well, so I would don't disagree with anything you said. I would add to that by saying this is that the person who asked the question, which I don't know who asked it because it got sent over to us, and it doesn't matter, and don't need to name them. But if your self image is so entrenched negatively, how would you convince yourself it can't change? The fact that you're asking that question tells me that it's not entrenched in the way that you
Mm.
cannot change it because you're aware of it. And once you become aware of it, awareness is a key to recovery. You can't overcome alcoholism until you're aware that you have a problem with alcohol. So if you're aware that you have a negative attitude, you have a negative personality, you have a negative, whatever the negative is, awareness of it says that you have the ability to overcome it. So that is a good one. The practical advice I would give to add to everything that Dr. Mosley just said is this: you have to actively reject negative thoughts. Actively reject negative thoughts. So little negative thoughts like, man, I'm so stupid. That's a negative thought. You should not say that. Actively decide, I will never say that again. Or I'm fat, I'm skinny, my ears are big, my nose is big, I'm too short. All of those are negative thoughts. You have to actively reject those. And if you do that consistently for months on end, your negative, whatever you call it, attitude, perspective, self image, will begin to slowly change. Because if you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, you've got 20, 30, or 40 years worth of that negative self talk. You ain't going to undo that in a weekend. You can't go to a Tony Robbins seminar and walk out a brand new person. You can start the walk towards a brand new person, but it's not going to
Mhm.
start. It's not going to happen overnight. So I love everything you said. Listen, we got other questions that are coming in. So if you got questions from the viewers, please type them in there. We got another question, Justin, that just came in. Said this: Justin, what advice would you give someone who can't see their potential and doesn't know who they want to become.
That's good. And before I forget too, a thought just to finish off that last one, because a lot of people will come to me like, man, I messed up. I started having some negative thinking again. These voices started showing up. I tell them, I don't care that the negative thoughts showed up. I'm actually glad that you were aware of them. I care about what you did with them. And that's what Jason just talked about. The more you become aware of those negative thoughts, you can realize that's who I was. That's not my new self image of who I am. So I can catch that negative thought and start shifting it into positive thoughts, positive affirmations, positive feelings and emotions. So give yourself credit. Every time you do that, that's a win. Every time you catch yourself negative thinking, here's what people do one way or the other. They catch themselves and then they beat themselves up because they were thinking negative again. And that just spirals out of control. Versus, no, catch yourself and reward yourself. Like, how awesome is you actually caught it and you stopped it. You didn't go down that rabbit hole of negative thinking. You said, you know what? That's not me. That's the old self image. This is who I am. And you affirmed that. So I did want to finish that because it was right in alignment with what you just said there. So this is a good one too, though, about if you don't see your own potential. And I actually, that's why I love these things because it's like it's all in alignment and flowing. Because I actually wrote this in my notes when you first started talking. I was like, what if people could see themselves the way God sees them? Like that type of self-image. Like, what if we all could really see that? We wouldn't be worried and anxious and stressed and worried about getting our lips done or my butt's sagging or whatever those things are. Like, what if we could truly see ourselves the way others could see us? So there's multiple things to do here. If you can't see your own potential, no, that's normal too. A lot of times we can't see it. You can't see the picture when you're in the frame. You need to get some outside input. One of the best things to do, survey people around you. Ask people, what do you think my strengths are? What are some of my best qualities? And you'll start to notice, send that out in text to people. I did that before back in the day when I was making shifts. I was like, who do people see that I am? Because it's all a perception. There's a perception of who I think I am versus who I think others think I am versus who they actually think I am versus who I actually am. Those are all different perspectives. So it's good to get a perspective of someone else because someone else might view you as, man, I look at you like you got so much confidence and the way you speak, I love your voice. That's one of the biggest ones. A lot of people will say, hey, I love your voice. Most people hate the sound of their own voice. That's a reality. Even I've talked to a lot of professional singers and musicians that even hate the sound of their own voice. But other people are like, man, even just your speaking voice, it sounds amazing. Jason's got an amazing radio voice. That's awesome. So survey other people. What are some of my best qualities? And it's not out of a vanity thing. Hey, tell me good things about myself, but come from a place of like, I really want to know how other people see me. And they'll start use those as affirmations to yourself that you need to start to believe what other people see in you. So that's step one. I would survey people, send a text, email. What are my top qualities? Ask some questions of specifically to you what you want to know. Where do you see my strengths are? What potential do you see in me? And really get feedback from people. And the people that care about you will give you honest feedback. And a lot of times you'll be surprised at what they see in you. So then you can create that own self image. You can start to believe it. Secondly, is who you surround yourself with. That is one of the biggest
Mhm.
things. I mean, Jim Rohn, they all the greats talked about you are the product of the 5 people you spend your most time with. And Jim Rohn also said, "You show me your friends, and I'll show you your destiny, or something. I'll I'll show you your income if you show me your friends." Like all these things are because you will start to adapt your self image to who you hang around with. But if you start hanging around with the right people that can actually pull things out of you, that's one of the best things to do. One of the most powerful things is join a mastermind group. Jason runs a mastermind group. I run mastermind groups. It's a group where we actually, that's what we do. We help pull out the greatness in others within the groups, and it creates an environment where people get to be seen, heard, and valued. They get to see other people's input and lift it up, and their self image is lifted up, and they become better people because of being in that group. So that's one way. If you can't afford to invest in that or coaching, coaching is one of the best things too, because a great coach can pull the best out of you. That's why all the great athletes, Tiger Woods had multiple coaches when he was in the prime of his career. Tiger Woods was in the prime of his career and changed his swing twice because his coach was like, let's make a little tweak. Let's do this. That's what coaches can do for you too, is pull out your potential. But if you can't afford to invest yet, that's where investing your time and energy. Invest in listening to podcasts, reading books. Your mentors can be the people that you read in books. They can be your actual physical mentor before you can invest in other people. So those are some just off the top of my head. Jason, what do you got on those?
I agree 100%. I think doing the survey of the people closest to you about perception, how they perceive you, is a brave and courageous thing to do. But it's going to be cathartic. It's going to help you, and you've got to really have people that you can trust. And if you don't have that, the second part of your question is one of the ways to do that. It's a mastermind group of people that you can get around. And I think to tag along with that is that's the beauty of business coaches and life coaches. Justin, I know you're the mindset doctor, you're a mindset coach, you work with clients and you help them shift their mindset. This is what you do. So if someone wanted to engage with you and say, listen, I want to invest some money in you so you can help me get my self-image right. That's probably one of the best investments you'd ever make in your life. And you'll have a better return on that investment than any money you put in crypto, real estate. It doesn't matter. Your investment in yourself is the best image, and that self-image. The business coach is the same way. If you're operating at a 2, 3, $4 million revenue and you can't seem to break that ceiling and you can't get past it, you hire a business coach. You say, okay, hire people like me. Say, Jason, I want you to help me get to that next level. And that's what other business coaches can do for you. What they will see is things you can't see. You're looking at your life through blinders. I'm fat, I'm skinny, I'm thin, I'm tall, I'm ugly, I'm attractive, I'm good looking, I'm too short. Whatever it is, that's how you see things. Other people, coaches especially, will open those blinders up and give you a 180-degree perspective, maybe 360 degrees, and be able to see what the reality is. So this idea of self-image is the one bold shift that can absolutely double your revenue, double your impact, double your influence. It will double everything. And if you want to achieve that doubling in your life, you've got to change your self-image. And it can happen through all these things that we're talking about today. Listen, I
Yeah,
love the interaction that we've got from our listeners, our viewers. We've got a lot of activity. So thank you guys for listening. If there's any other questions, please go ahead and type those in. Justin, what else do you want to kind of talk about on this one bold shift? Any other concepts or ideas? I have one thing from the book Psycho Cybernetics I want to mention, but before I do that, I want to give you the
yeah.
opportunity to talk a little bit.
Yeah, because I think a big piece of this comes with that last question too. You have to believe in your own potential. So it comes within self belief, and self belief is tied to the image you have in your head of what's possible for you. So one way to look at it, especially for people that have kids, like your kids look up to you and think you're Superman or Superwoman. They think you could do anything. Even when things could be falling in all around you and you could be negative and thinking all these things, your kids still think you're Superman, you're Superwoman, you can handle it all. What if you believed in yourself as much as they believe in you? And
Mm,
then a way to shift it. What about the people that you believe in? Whether it's celebrities or athletes or amazing business people, the people that are crushing it in life that you look up to, what if you believed in yourself as much as you believed in them? Because it all comes down to belief. And that's where you will start to believe it. With so that I want to get to that specific when it comes to potential. Your potential is unlimited. That's the thing. The limit is from the limit we put on it ourselves. That's the thing. So there could be a limit that we don't know how. There's an awareness. Like if I don't know how to make $10 million, I need to put myself around the people who know how to make $10 million. So there's an awareness piece there. But it starts with being aware that I don't have that skill. I need to surround myself with people like that. So it's not an issue of do you have the potential? It's do you believe in yourself to surround yourself with the right people? Do you believe in yourself enough to affirm who you are becoming so you can actually start to become the person that can make the $10 million or become a successful speaker or whatever you want to do? It comes down to will you believe in yourself? And the best way to start doing that is what we've already talked about is start affirming it, start mentally rehearsing it, and you will feel a shift. And so, Jason, I'll throw that back to you because you started doing this. This is a great point. You don't have to do all this to be successful. Some of this you could do unconsciously. Like Jason, you went from your story, the unemployed school teacher, to becoming multi-million dollar business owner. Like you physically made a shift, but you weren't mentally doing this stuff every day. So you created success. But now, when you started doing this specifically and you got really key on this, you felt a shift, right?
yeah. And this is why I've said so many times just during this webinar that All of this is happening underneath under the surface, whether you're intending it to happen or not. How much better would it be if we are directing the happening rather than allowing it just to happen
Mhm.
passively? So yeah, I went from unemployed school teacher to entrepreneur accidentally. And as I went through that process, I built a very successful business, and I was able to become a millionaire because of building that type of business. However, I didn't understand, nor did I participated actively in self-image. It was happening, but I wasn't actively participating in it. And I succeeded in spite of the fact that I wasn't actively managing my self-image, which is a testament to the people I surrounded myself with, the things that I was reading and consuming helped me build that. No, over the last year or so, I have dove into the deep end, as you and I both know, because we're doing this together, into mindset, mind shift, understanding self-image, understanding auto-suggestion, understanding rehearsing, mental rehearsal. And now, holy moly, like the shift that's changing. I mean, just in what I charge clients for coaching services has significantly changed because of the shift that I've made in my mind and I'm helping my clients make in their minds. I used to worry that wasn't going to be able to get $1,500 per month from a client as a coach. And now I get clients pay me over $10,000 a month to work with me on a regular basis. That's a huge that didn't happen because I showed up as a $1,500 coach. I showed up as a $125,000 coach. That's what I showed up as, and I'm helping them in ways that are commensurate with that. So I've been doing this for only less than a year, just deeply, and it's already changing things to the tune of millions of dollars of opportunity and revenue.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shared your story because you're a perfect example of multiple shifts. So there was the shift of, because here's a great insight for people listening: nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. So Jason loses his job as a school teacher. He could have created the meaning, the story that, oh, woe is me. I'm an unemployed school teacher. I'm going to try to start a business. Oh, I'm going to fail just like the teaching did. Like, I'm never good enough. And he could have not been successful. Versus he shifted the story. You're like, you know what? That opportunity is over. I'm going to learn how to be successful. And he put himself around people that helped him learn skills necessary to become successful as a business person. But that's because he actually did the work of creating a new self-image in his mind. He created a self-image of what it's like to be successful. He wasn't doing it, he wasn't directing it like he said, but he still did it. He did create that new self-image. Now, fast forward, he creates the success. Now, what's next? So, the what next for him now is actually directed. He actually physically said, hey, I'm going to make another shift. I'm going to say, okay, this is all great, but what's next for me? And for him, he had to create a whole different self image of who he is and who he was becoming. And he's became that person every single day. And dude, I'm proud of you as a friend to watch that because that's amazing to see you step into your power of what's possible. So that goes back to, we never really know what our potential is. And I like to tell people, you never know what you're truly capable of until you actually shoot for the impossible. Because we all shoot for goals that we think that we can achieve. But if we think that we can achieve it, that's still within our comfort zone. So if we shoot for something we think is impossible for us, a lot of times we surprise ourselves and we actually become this even greater version of ourselves, and we surpass even our biggest goals that are in our wildest dreams. So
Yeah.
it goes specifically, but I wanted to use your story specifically too for people listening, because somebody could have been in that situation that was the reverse and things kept happening to them and negative stuff just came over. They never could seem to get ahead. That's not your story. That's who your story's been up until now, but now is your chance to decide. I can shift this in this moment. I'm going to create this new version of who I am, and I'm going to show up as that every single day. I'm going to affirm it. I'm going to mentally rehearse it, and I'm going to become it. And when you become it, the world opens up for you.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, thank you for participating in this today, viewers. Thank you for sending in your questions. Thank you for leaving comments. We've had a lot of activity today, so thank you for doing that. And to Dr. Justin Mosley, the Mindset Doctor, thank you for being a participant in this day as one of our guest experts in the series, the Entrepreneur Master Series. I want to give you the opportunity to tell all the viewers and listeners how to get in touch with you in case they want to work with you as a mindset coach or just want to get access to some of your resources and follow you on social media. Could you take a minute to tell everybody how to get in touch?
Yeah. So one of the best things, mindshiftlinks.com, and we can drop the link, but mindshiftlinks.com has a lot of free resources. So definitely there's one called the baseball technique. This is one you can do to help reprogram your subconscious mind, help you tap into actually using this mental rehearsal. Is whereas I got like a free life purpose meditation, some different things there for you as well. Otherwise, connect with me on Instagram. Instagram, I'm very active. I answer all my DMs as well as Jason does. If something we said spoke to you, comment to us. Like we love interacting and say, okay, what actually spoke to you and hearing the insights that you got. So for me, I'm at Dr. Justin Mosley on Instagram, or my website is drjustinmosley.com.
All right. Well, we're putting mindshiftlinks.com in the chats. Make sure Justin Tatum, make sure that gets in the Zoom chat too. Make sure everybody can see that. So we put that in all the chats so people can go check that out. Justin, thanks for being here, man. Stick around. Don't leave the room. But I've got some stuff I got to do for outro for everybody, and I've got a special announcement for everybody viewing about the next EMS. So, Justin, thank you so much for being my guest expert today. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you, man. I always enjoy these conversations. So appreciate it.
All right, well, let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up on the next EMS. I'm going to tell you the topic and the guest experts are going to be coming up on the next show. So make sure you don't leave. Make sure you stick around. Also, I want to let you know that I'm hosting a live mastermind intensive retreat in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee coming up at the end of this month, June 25th through the 27th. I only have a couple of slots left available for this. It's a small group intended for entrepreneurs. That's going to be an intense day-long hot seat session and true mastermind session where we're going to dig into your business and find out what opportunities, what issues can be solved. And then on Tuesday, a day-long session where we're working together as a mastermind group to help you write a 90-day action plan to solve those issues and to realize all the opportunities. This is an amazing opportunity for you to get where you need to go in a very short period of time by using the power of a mastermind. If you're interested in attending this, go to therealjasonduncan.com/intensive, therealjasonduncan.com/intensive, and you can sign up and you can register for one of the slots that are left remaining. The admission price is only $2,500. That is all inclusive of everything. We're going to have a chef on site preparing all our meals. We're going to have top shelf booze and cigars. We're going to have a great time on Sunday night just hanging out. Then we got get down to work all day Monday. And then on Tuesday, we'll be writing all of our action plans. You'll be done by Tuesday at 4 p.m., ready to go tackle the world for the second half of the 2023 year. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/intensive and make sure that you are there live in person, June 25th through the 27th. All right, let me tell you about what's coming up. So the next EMS webinar is going to be on July the 12th, same time, 3:30 p.m. Central Time. And the topic, you're going to love this. Listen to this. Why the 5 love languages isn't working for couples and what will. So these are this topic is designed specifically for entrepreneurs and business owners. Why the 5 love languages isn't working in your marriage as an entrepreneur and what will actually work. My guest experts are Tony and Elisa Di Lorenzo. They are renowned marriage coaches, and we're going to do this groundbreaking webinar that challenges the limitations of the 5 love languages that have been around for decades, where one or both of you are entrepreneurs in your marriage. You're going to discover a revolutionary approach to achieving lasting success in not only your marriage, but your business as well. And I know Justin, our guest today, he and his wife are both entrepreneurs. And so I know this is going to be of interest to them. I am an entrepreneur. My wife is not. This is interest to me. So no matter how many of you in your partnership are entrepreneurs or want to be, this is a webinar you don't want to miss. Tony and Alyssa are going to delve into the unique challenges faced by entrepreneurs, providing practical strategies for finding harmony between love and ambition. And we're going to explore the transformative power of something called the 6 pillars of intimacy, which is a framework to strengthen your marriage and build a thriving partnership. So don't miss on this opportunity to redefine your relationship dynamics and unlock the keys to fulfillment and success. You can register now and embark on a journey toward a truly balanced and thriving entrepreneurial marriage. So go to therealjasonduncan.com/EMS and make sure you sign up for the next one. That's coming up on July the 11th at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. So thank you again to Dr. Justin Mosley, the Mindset Doctor, founder of Mindshift International, for being our guest expert today. Thank you for all the viewers on LinkedIn, Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube for being here and for participating and asking questions. You guys are amazing, and that's why we do this. And if you are listening to this later on on a replay on my podcast or wherever else you're watching it, make sure that you register to come to these lives so that you can ask questions and be a part of it. But thank you for being here. As always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.